was important to start there because it's not so much of us versus them necessarily. You will find support and friends in strange places. I just want to put that out there. But first, the next starting point would be, what is gentrification? Gentrification is cultural genocide. Can you say it with me? Gentrification is cultural genocide. It's a little uncomfortable, right? Some of you might not agree with that. Okay. But what is culture? A lot of people have a problem just defining what is culture. You know, especially children, because they haven't been taught culture. Culture is everything we do, how we talk, how we dress, how we walk, the foods we eat, how we dance, the music we listen to. That is culture. And when you displace people, you have effectively destroyed their culture, okay? You have destroyed their culture. There's two books that I'm speaking from primarily. I'm citing a lot of sources of information. If you'd like to check out my sources of information, you can, of course, like React Radio on Facebook, and also look at the event page. I have posted nearly everything that I prepared my notes from here today. But what has really given me the confidence and the foundation to do what I've been doing in terms of educating myself on this issue for the past 5 years are these two books. The book that I think examines the problem is The Origins of the Urban Crisis, Race and Inequality in Post-War Detroit. This chronicles the problem. You have to understand the problem in order to develop better solutions. I think this is one of the best examinations of the problem. Origins of the Urban Crisis, Race and Inequality in Post-War Detroit. Now, the solution is this. This is my Bible. This is my holy book. I swear on this book. One of them has already been stolen. That's the kind of business I run. My wallet is safe, but books are in jeopardy. Okay. Streets of Hope, the Fall and Rise of Urban Neighborhoods. Streets of Hope, the fall and rise of urban neighborhoods. It tells the story of South Bend, Boston, which if people are not familiar with Boston, South Bend was not just a high crime area, it was a dumping ground for everything. You got a junk car, you can't get rid of it, drop it in South Bend. You want to get a quick fix on your dilapidated building, set it on fire. We got some arsons from South Bend. It was that type of space. And then, all of a sudden, here comes the artists, the yuppies, and the hipsters, and they started doing what happens with gentrification. They put a leash on gentrification by creating a community group and empowering that group with community land trusts. Community land trust is when you have a piece of property that the city releases to the community to develop that is not exposed to the market prices. We cannot leave our destinies, our livelihoods up to market forces, okay? That is insane, all right? Market forces has never benefited the people, all right? So let's start there. I want to have a discussion, so I'm going to try to move quickly through the notes and reserve enough time to actually have a qualitative discussion. But we first have to present enough information so we all starting from the same point. All right. I'm sorry that if the audio is not good enough for you, I'm going to try to speak as clear as possible. And anyone can stop me at any time if you have a question or you want to have a rebuttal. I'm open to that. All right. Moving through this. It has become commonplace today to gauge the health or success of a city on its visible gentrification, even if there's little evidence that these islands of prosperity do much to transform the urban economy or benefit the majority of the city's population. Hence, a new baseball stadium or a new football stadium and all the promises that goes with it. Jay-Z, love him, the most successful hip-hop artist of all time and older than me, which makes me feel young. But his Brooklyn statement, he was used to, whether he knows it or not, his fame, his name, his recognition was used to sell the idea of this Brooklyn basketball stadium coming in and displacing blocks of people. That's why it was minimal resistance to this. I would even submit that they couldn't have gotten that deal through had it not been his affiliation with the project. We'll get into others being used for displacement gentrification in a moment. We need a paradigm shift. from city planning and closed doors development deals to community-based planning. All power to the people. All right. That's one of my mentors right there. Good to see you, Mr. B. Yes. Hey, what's going on, sister? Oh, wonderful. I hope to get a chance to talk when this is over. You got to come back this way, don't you? Okay. As I was saying, community-based planning. We need less trickle-down economics and more of a bottom-up approach. No more allowing one person or group to represent all the interests in the community. That is colonization. That's colonization. And in fact, here in D.C., we have a white bar. I kid you not. And the name is Colony. The Colony. And it's up on Georgia Avenue. And it's still an all-black neighborhood. Black drug addicts out front. White people having latte and beer. And it's the Colony. All right. Just want to put that out there. So this is not just gentrification, old wars me, the haves versus the have-nots, That's not simple that. That's the public persona that they want to project because that divides people, okay? Because then you can hear the argument, it was a high crime area, now it's safe, it's better, it's beautiful, you want to live in the hood, Okay, so we're going to delve into that a little bit, but again, that is like a red herring to the real issue. The real issue is that we are in the midst of a housing crisis. They don't want us to talk about that. In the video, I asked, how many of you spend more than 30% of your income in housing? That's a question to the room. How many of you spend more than 30% of your income in housing? Okay? See, this is where it gets funky. Because I personally know people who might have a BMW, they might have a condo, they might have $200 shoes, but they might miss lunch from time to time, and it ain't because they on a diet either. It's because they barely making it, realistically. If they went out last night and had too much fun, that car might get declined for lunch tomorrow. And we kind of like glossing over the issues that we're living in, whereas the government, federal guidelines, I wish it was a mandate, says that you should not be spending more than 30% of your income in housing. Whereas in DC, I know people spending 50% of their income in housing. Some may be more than that. You have situations where there's 4 guys sharing, a 2-bedroom apartment. Those are cases as well. So they want to cloud the issue of a housing crisis because if that got out, then maybe we'll all pull together and start addressing this for what it is. We're all been exploited. Okay? Here's a little snapshot of the arc of how we've been exploited. All of us have been exploited. So first we have an all-white community. A developer comes to the all-white community and says, those people are coming. And the value of your house is going down $1,000 every blah, 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 blah. You should sell while you can. So then they sell lower than what their house may have been at the time to go to the suburbs. Okay? And at that time, it's going to probably be a little higher, but they get a bigger space. Then they, take the property, reject the area for a while, it goes down, drugs, police, it's a hood, anybody can afford to leave has, now you have a concentration of poverty, and what happens when poverty knocks on the door? Love goes out the window, you have a lot more violence, and then they come back 20, 30 years later and buy it dirt cheap and sell it that's the art, that is called city planning. And the same person that moved out, his kids are now going to pay these new prices because they've been exploited too. That house is not worth that. But because the market allows for it, they're going to pay it. And they want to make sure that they can be one of those people, even though they may have to be 4 guys in a 2-bedroom apartment just to be in this area. So that's how we're all being exploited. Okay? That's a little quick snapshot. Now, there's a housing crisis. I want everybody to walk out of here knowing that we have a housing crisis. Now, a more affluent but transit class is not sustainable in the long term when you displace families who've been there for generations. Because those 4 guys that live in that 2-bedroom are not going to be there long. First one get married is out of there. First one graduates is out of there. They are not sustainable. So they're gambling on this high turnover. Which is fine because guess what? Every time someone moves up, what happens to the rent? When a new person comes in, it's a little bit higher. So that works for them. This is a developer's dream that we're living in, and it's a nightmare for people who are trying to look for housing. It's basically capitalism out of control. If you think I'm playing, look at Chinatowns across this country. They are struggling to keep Chinese people in Chinatown. Here in DC, I think it's the Walk House or something. Thank you. They are like the last building of Chinese residents in Chinatown, and they had to fight to stay there. The last residents of Chinese people had to fight to stay there. Okay? San Francisco, here in DC, Philly and New York, Chinatown. That should paint a picture for you of just how vicious this is. Okay? That's again, genocide is gentrification is cultural genocide. All right? And this is a worldwide issue. Okay? Worldwide issue. Shanghai has a Chinatown. Just think about that for a second. Okay? That is the amount of outside influence that has market stores, chain stores, and international, multinational corporations have destroyed a Chinese city and minimize it to a Chinatown in China. Okay, just want to put that out there. So we got a fight on our hands here. Even Little Italy in New York has been destroyed, completely gone. It's just a tourist attraction by name. Now for DC to try to gloss over this a little bit, it resulted in a symbolic attempt in the city ordinance that all businesses are required to have Chinese bilingual language. All right? So now you have Hooters in Chinese to preserve the culture. Okay? Now, wherever you have a polarized labor market, you will have a polarized housing market. DC has the greatest disparity in wealth of any city in this country. This country has the greatest disparity in wealth of anywhere in the world. So that's why we have this problem, okay? So we have a housing market that's defined by the labor market. So if the median income is $100,000, anybody here makes $100,000? You sure? That's the median, the middle, and they define what is affordable by this median income, which takes into account surrounding areas outside of DC where even wealthier people reside to decide what is affordable in some of the poorest sections of town. So $100,000 is the median, and even if they say, oh, well, we're going to rent this out for 80% of the median income, that would be $80,000. You know, so whenever you hear someone say affordable housing, know that they are running game. That is a very ambiguous term. What does that mean, affordable? Like I said before, $1 million house is affordable to somebody. What do you mean affordable? What does that mean? We need to change the language. We have to change the language so that we are accurately communicating what it is we want. The bottom line is this: whatever the lowest paying full-time job in that city is, there should be housing at 30% of that income for that person to live somewhere in that city. Period. That's your base. And you should have the same amount of housing units for the same number of those jobs. That should be your marker. But they don't want to have that conversation because they're letting the market run this. Okay? We have to start changing the language here. Now, for those that dismiss this notion that deliberate displacement is as mere conspiracy theories, are ignoring the historical fact that settlers displacing natives is consistent with genocidal removal of Native Americans who are still mistakenly referred to as Indians or Latinos, and that was given firewater, their drugs, to help them facilitate bad deals. We're given smallpox infected blankets, so that's your chemical warfare. So you have like lead water, environmental racism, and then you have food deserts where people are not able to have healthy alternatives. That's why we have a great number of what do they call for diabetics on dialysis centers. We have a high concentration of those in our communities. That is a marker of bad health, and they coincide with these food deserts, as you would probably gather. Now, But we learn the most from studying timelines. That's what we got to do. Look at the timelines, and things will explain themselves. Observe timelines. History is prologue. Now, if you look at the timeline in America, when black people started asserting themselves, they called it the Civil Rights Movement. 1964 brought us the Civil Rights Act. 1965 brought us the Voting Rights Act. That was what our foundation, they gave us so-called equality, or at least a chance or a version of equality here in America. Also, the sister that sued Fox News for sexual harassment in the workforce needs to thank the Civil Rights Act, because that's what gave that. That's a white woman who benefited from the Civil Rights Act. I think she got buku bucks. I don't know if she knows that or not. But something else happened in '64. The term gentrification came about. Okay? How many of y'all seen the Netflix documentary 13th? 13th. If you haven't, you need to do it. 13th. Okay? Going back a little bit, I'm telling you the timelines. Slavery ended in 1865. Guess what year the United States erected their first penitentiaries? 1865. Okay? As soon as black people started getting civil rights, 1964, gentrification was created. Okay? Look that up. All right, that's coded language. It's coded language. Redlining, block busting, all of this is the same thing. Now, again, back to that notion of how this area is a result of city planning. We're going to put resources over here. We're going to deny resources over here. There's a name for that. It's called planned shrinkage. Planned shrinkage was a public policy termed back in the 70s by New York Housing Commissioner Robert Starr, which the city would stop investing in troubled neighborhoods and divert funds into communities that could still be saved, i.e. suburbs or whatever. The policy was applied to the South Bronx and Harlem by closing subway stations, firehouses, and schools. Without adequate firefighting service and police protection, residents faced waves of crime and fires that left much of those areas devastated. The policy was decried at the time as inhumane, racist, and genocidal. Gentrification is cultural genocide. Okay. Now, planned shrinkage has been replaced by words like gentrification, diversity, urban renewal, improvement, whatever. But this social segregation is where price tags now replace the signs where we had white only and colored only. Price tags now replace those signs, and that's what we're dealing with. Okay? There's another policy you should be aware of, and it's called benign neglect. Benign neglect is a product of the Nixon administration, where he says, promise them nothing, give them nothing. That basically says we will ignore the issue. We will not give, or if we do address the issue, as lip service to an issue, as if I just invested $100 million in affordable housing. What more do you want from me? When you already know what that means. You know, it's still not addressing the problem. Okay. Now, how do we wrestle control for the city to respect community planning? They will give you all kinds of excuses of why they can't do that. Okay. One of them would be our municipal bondholders will lose their mind. I had to educate myself on this. Municipal bondholders are just like stocks on Wall Street, where you can buy stock in this city, and you can wager if that city gonna make money. And like Jay-Z would say, if the city doesn't make money, fuck you, pay me. If you gotta cut social services to give me my money, that's what you're gonna do. If you gotta cut the TAF or the food stamps or the schools or whatever, you better do that to give me my return on my investment. And we have seen cities more than willing to do that, okay? So whenever there's a problem, they cut programs that affect the most at-risk people in the community. But if we were to say, why don't we raise income taxes on the wealthier residents, they would cry, oh, we can't do that. That would be unfair. Because they basically hoping that you are uninformed with how unfair the current system is already. In Washington, D.C., right here, the top tier tax bracket is $40,000, which means she makes $40,000, she makes $80,000, she makes $2 million, and so forth and so on. They're paying the same percentage in taxes. And you know that whatever that percentage is it constitutes a greater portion of her salary than the higher one. So We could create some of these funds, because the first thing they're going to say, oh, community land trust, well, we'll give you the land, but who's going to invest in it? Where are you going to get the money to develop it? Well, why don't we create what we call a progressive income tax, and use that progressive income tax money to create these houses that's not exposed to market forces, and we can start beginning to develop ourselves. That would be another extension of equitable economic development. But because the haves are powerful and can run somebody's campaigns and can make or break a candidate, no one's going to touch it. Because you know what it costs to run a campaign. And who benefits from the campaign? The media. So they're never going to give you a major media outlet these types of alternatives or options. And so they're leaving it up to us to try to build up enough noise, build up enough a constituency. I'm trying to use my words carefully. I'm an angry black man in therapy, so I'm really trying to speak as if my mother was in the room. But we have to educate ourselves and organize ourselves. I'm hoping that I will give enough information for someone to start to do that, okay? And in fact, if you live here in D.C., I would like to let you know that November 19th, we're having an event on community land trust. We have a couple, I don't want you thinking we're just talking. This is a movement. Just like Black Lives Matter and everything else, this is a movement. We're not just talking. I have City First Bank working with us, which is a small community bank, and everybody in this room should take your money out of any major multinational corporation bank and put it into a small community bank tomorrow. 11th Street Bridge Project here in DC, they have an abandoned bridge, and they're going to create it into a park and make it just a walkable community, okay? Now, I'm cool with that. It's just that I know what that means. Walkable community means the value of this goes up, because gentrification that's what this is about. They have a finite amount of walkable community. They want to be close to downtown. The suburbs are no longer cool. Driving in rush hour traffic, an hour back and forth, 5 times a week, it's not cool. It's no longer attractive. People want to be close to where they live, work, play. That is what this is about. You have something you want to say, sister? Okay. So that's what this struggle is about. 11th Street Bridge Project recognizes that. So I would need the strategic partners to help me wrestle some control and resources from the city and others to build these projects, because they're not going to give it to the angry black man in therapy. Okay? Not directly anyway. So we have to be open to, as I said, you're going to get help from strange places. But as long as you are armed with factual information and you're with the right people, you should be fine. I urge y'all to educate yourselves. This, again, is the book you need to give you the foundation to do that, because it gives you pitfalls and successes at the same time. Okay, now, one of the things I tried to coin the phrase displacement-free-zone to basically qualify what it is that we want. Gentrification results in displacement. We need to have visions of development without displacement. So displacement-free zone is how I summarize that. And then with my research, I found out that there's nothing new under the sun. Displacement-free zone was used in an area in Brooklyn called Cox Slope on Fifth Avenue group in 1999. They did 3 things that worked for them. They used local religious leaders to push the consciousness of landlords. They used local religious leaders, i.e. churches or whatever, to push the consciousness of landlords. 2, they got legal help for tenants in court. And 3, they protest at landlords' homes and businesses to amplify their argument and their issues. Now, the government has already circled the wagons on a couple of these things that has worked. You've seen that it's a thing called faith-based initiatives. This was a product of the Bush administration. What was faith-based initiatives? The acronym is FBI, by the way, black folks. But these faith-based initiatives basically created these mega churches because they gave money to these religious groups. Why? Because the premise was that if I give you this money, you're not going to do anything or say anything that's critical of my administration or the government. Because in the Bush administration, a whole lot of funky stuff went down, right? But you ain't had nobody saying nothing from the religious community because they already had their hush money. They got their big church. They okay? And that's when you start seeing flags in churches, ATMs in churches, charging for parking in churches, and all this type of thing. So we may have a little harder time getting local religious leaders to address the consciousness to go up against the city. You don't have too many of that anymore. Okay? Remember that. I want you to understand what we're up against. So some of these tactics that they use may or may not work now, so we got to be creative thinkers to come up with our own tactics to ensure that we have some power and some say in the development without displacement. And the whole idea was to bring the landlord to the table to negotiate and appeal to their moral conscience. Well, unfortunately, the late, great Stokely Carmichael, who later became Kwame Ture, he said that Martin Luther King's faulty assertion, or assumption I should say rather, I'm trying to think of his exact words, but he said that he assumed that by letting the dogs and the water hoses and the suffering go on, that we would be appealing to the morals and the conscience of our oppressors, and they would see the beauty of our struggle and grant us the concessions. He said the faulty assumption was that he assumed that they had morals and a consciousness. And I assure you that most of the people in position of power do not have morals and consciousness. So I would not encourage you to be appealing to that. I think we need to have something a little bit more forceful. So if you was going to the landlord's house, maybe you want to block his car in the driveway. So he would have to talk to you. I wouldn't sit there holding a candle asking him to stop his car to talk to me. So just to give you an idea of where I'm going with that. Emergency management. Everybody familiar with this? This is what happened in Detroit and Flint, Michigan. Emergency management, where they came in. The government says, well, we're going to disregard all of your duly elected officials, and we're going to take over everything. And you saw the results from that. That is just to give you an example of what the government can do if they want to. If they want to. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they fight you, and then you win. So we have to make sure that we're asking, or I should say demanding exactly what we want and not taking no for an answer. Okay? To give you an example and a creative approach to things, I when I got fired from the post office for making anti-war statements about 13 years ago. And I decided that I would no longer do anything I don't want to do for money. And I've been able to keep that up, which is why I don't have a lot of money. Buy me a drink, please. But one of the things why I was feeling so sorry for myself, it's like, I can't get a job, I can't kiss nobody's ass, what I'm going to do? And the elder was saying, well, what do you know how to do? What are you good at? I said, man, I'm not good at anything. I flunked out of school. He said, you know how to do something. What can you do? I said, I know how to play chess. He said, cool, teach chess. Like, who's going to pay me to teach chess? He said, children, teach kids how to play chess. I'm like, okay, I'll try. So I go to a school. And I did my research about all the wonderful things and virtues that chess does, the education, your conflict skills, your focus, how it increase attention spans, and all these wonderful things that you can really use in public schools. And they say, well, we really don't have funding for that. Sorry. I go back to the other. See, I told you it didn't work. He said, you did it wrong. You got to create the program before you can sell the program. So what I did is I was working with a nonprofit. I was sitting on the board, and then when you're on the board, you either give money or content. I created content. So I created Bum Rush the Boards hip-hop chess tournament. All right? So now we got all these kids from these public housings, and we created our tournament, got it on tape, blah, 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 blah. Now the tournament is happening. I go to a school and say, I want to register your kids to compete in our chess tournament. And the school's like, well, we don't have a chess team. And I said, well, I'm available Thursdays at 4 o'clock. If you want me to come in, I can get a team ready in 6 to 8 weeks. Really? How much would you charge? Oh, well, my prices are whole different presentation. So what we got to do is try to create the program and then get everybody on our program, okay? And we're kicking our program off on November 19th, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Just thinking outside the box. I don't want y'all walking ahead. This is not the old woe is me, shit's fucked up, I need to drink crap, okay? This is to do something. Our motto at Equitable is to do something. It's always something you can do, always. Okay, another thing that needs to happen is property values. We got to address that. Property taxes has to be addressed. That is the 21st century redlining, so that I can raise up the value, market forces, and you can't afford them, and you got to go, and here come the people I wanted to give it to, okay? We can cap that. In fact, I would want to decrease it in some cases. A friend of mine has just become a council member here in D.C. He goes into office in January, which is why we have a meeting in November, and da-da-da. You see where I'm going with this? Okay. But you have to realize how that is being used and misused, okay? How school budgets decided? Property taxes. And to quote Malcolm X, when you live in a poor area, you go to a poor school. You go to a poor school, you get a poor education. You get a poor education, you get a poor job that enables you to live in a poor area. So there you are, ensuring that no one goes anywhere. And when you're ready for them to go somewhere, just raise the property taxes. And of course, we can't give it to that school right now because it might benefit you and give you some ideas. So we're going to create a charter school who is selective in who goes to that school and who has public funds and private operation. And for those who do not know, when a charter school gets funding based upon the number of students enrolled in that school, they enroll in September. Whatever the date is, they can kick out any number of those students after that date and still have the funding for that enrollment that existed before that date. And who gets those students that they don't want? The underfunded public school. Putting that out there. And that's all driven by property taxes. So we have to address property taxes when we're moving forward with this. At the very minimum, it has to be a cap on property tax, and if possible, a decrease in property taxes. Some people will sit here and say, oh, like that's somehow affecting the value of a house. That's just more BS because we're talking about taxes. We ain't talking about the value. And if you're saying that they one and the same, then that means that the government is actually the market forces. Okay? Cultural capital is followed by physical capital. Cultural capital is followed by physical capital. That means art can cause gentrification. And not just as using as a patsy like Jay-Z was used. I'm talking about as an actual agent. Okay? So what do? It's a blighted area. Okay? And you know how they create blighted areas. But it's a blighted area. So I own the building. I donate it to the artist. Now, because I made that donation, I get a tax write-off, and the artist comes in, it makes it a nice, hot, eclectic area, and da-da-da, and once some people start getting some traffic in there, and they put these little ticker tape things, I don't know if you ever seen them, these little metal boxes, with a little black wire, and go across the street, and the cars will go over it, and they can count the traffic. And you'll see that right before something goes up. So they can sit here and have the data to tell you how many impressions is somebody's getting, or since that building went up, how many more you're getting. That's how they measure stuff. We have to start looking around and seeing what's going on. So when the artist has that whatever impression number they need to hit, you're out of there because they just opened so-and-so and here comes so-and-so, and that's how it happens, okay? Because they need that time to prove to other developers that their investment is going to be sound. And the art was used to do that, to make avenues for that. Okay? So that is my notes my official presentation from my notes. Now we can just open up to the floor for conversation. I hope everyone is interested in doing something about this issue. If anyone does not live in D.C., please raise your hand if you don't live in D.C. Okay, that means I don't have that many supporters in here because all of you guys can go home to your own areas. But fortunately for us, gentrification is an octopus and has tentacles going everywhere. Okay, so where are you living? New York. Big fight. I'd love to talk to you some more.
I live in Arlington, so I can, in theory, help with things going on.
Thank you.
But yeah.
Thank you. You have a low power FM station in Arlington. What is it called? I can't think of it. But you need to check out. That's a great media outlet that you guys can control. Who else is not? New York. New York? Okay, I want to talk to New York people. Brooklyn, New York. Brooklyn. Oh, okay. San Juan, Puerto Rico. What the f is going on in Puerto Rico? Do you want independence? People need to understand this is I want to understand everything, as they say, think global, act local. That's it. The problems we have here are similar to the problems you have in here, but we need to understand the symbolisms that is being used to separate us. San Juan. Anybody else outside of DC? Oakland, California. Today is the 50th anniversary of the Black Panther Party. I'm going to close out reading the 10-point platform for the Black Panther Party.
So, can I ask a question?
Of course.
So, one problem we have in Oakland, which is rapidly gentrifying thanks to what's happening in San Francisco and what's happening in Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is one of the most expensive places to live in the world. And so, one of the issues we have in Oakland is the government itself, the city government, has very little money. And so, they're trying to incentivize developers to come there and kind of pay into it. And we're at this critical moment in the arts and culture area where we don't even have an arts commission. And this is a city that's next door to San Francisco, which has a budget of about $20 million for the arts in grant funding, and then beyond that much more. And in Oakland, it's about $900,000. And so I guess my question is, when you have a situation like that and the city government itself has very little money, and the government, the mayor is trying to reconcile how do you deal with raising money from developers, incentivizing people to come to your city, while also not having it gentrify rapidly, and while also trying to figure out how do you build, I guess I'm trying to ask, how do you build up your own city's capacity to fundraise for itself, to get taxes so that they can pay into arts and culture, so that they can create affordable housing? Because they're faced with all kinds of sort of negotiations themselves.
You want to teach them how to play chess, but you have to have a chess tournament first. So you have to build the program, a model to show to them so they can physically see it. And out of my 5 years of research in this, the best way is a community land trust. You need an ally at a small community bank. You need an ally from a developer. I'm sure you can find one that's not a complete asshole. And you need someone who has some contacts in city government. There is somebody, even in government, there's going to be somebody like, I can tell you what you need to.
I'm talking about raising the cities.
Well, what I'm saying is that the start is that you have to come together to build this project, and so you can show the people, because then what they say, you build it, they come. Okay, I wish I was a little further along in my building, but I hope laid out to you that this is about to happen. It took us this long to get somebody in office, it took us long to get these strategic partners, and now it's about to happen. We're going to put a leash on this. Where you have to start is finding your strategic partners. I'm gonna tell you right now, they are dependent on you not having the energy to follow through all this. They're dependent on you to get tired. They're dependent on you to give up. They're dependent on you not to be willing to do the work it takes to get all these people together, having meetings in your house and making cheese crackers and running up your phone. And they're dependent on that. As long as we are divided, as long as we are intimidated, as long as we are disempowered, we will stay that way. My advice to you is to get angry. Find something that pisses you off, and that would be your rocket fuel. I tell you, I'm an angry black man in therapy. It's not a pejorative. It's my rocket fuel. If I had the choice of being depressed, intimidated, scared, or angry, guess which emotion I'm going to go with? So I don't want to say, I hope I'm not disappointing you in my response, because what I'm saying is that it has to start with us. All this others, it has to start with us. It really do. And it's going to require us to be creative thinkers to address the problems, because they're not going to give us the tools to dismantle Master's house. Okay? I have assembled some tools that could be helpful, very helpful. And I would like to hear more from you, and I'd like to stay in contact with you. And as we move forward, then maybe our model, you can also point to, hey, well, this is what it looks like. Look what they're doing in DC. It's starting to work. Okay? So let's try to stay in touch with that. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I already work with the city quite a bit because I work for a private foundation. We're actually funding the city we're funding a policy director for the arts for Oakland. So we're already sort of partnering with them and helping them try to find solutions. So sort of getting angry at them in this case doesn't always work.
We're not angry as in yelling. You don't want to do that. If you're outside, you want to yell. But once you come inside, you have to use your inside voice.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious to hear more about the community land trust model and sort of specific tools that have worked.
Okay, if you subscribe to React Radio's YouTube channel, I will give you all that you need because we will be filming on November 19th, and that will a lot of answers to be given there. Also, I have one strategic partner for you in Oakland and San Francisco. I think the company is called GEHL, G-E-H-L. GEHL? Yeah, I work with them. They arguably could be one of these gentrifying primers by orchestrating art projects in areas, and I'm working with them.
Yeah,
but
they have an amazing film, The Human Scale, if anyone hasn't seen it, check it out.
Yeah, so let's talk some more. Sister?
I really have a voice at this point of the conference, so I'm sorry.
Okay, can you come over here so I can get you closer to the text?
Well, first I want you to repeat the name of the YouTube channel so we can look for it.
We Act Radio. I'm gonna give everybody my card.
That's
Yeah.
what's on yeah. So I'm wondering, like,
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure I hear you.
I'm wondering, like, when is it? So right now, Puerto Rico just started officially a fiscal board over the island as of September. So I can resonate with everything that you're saying. And it's really harsh because we are colonized people and our minds are so colonized, like so profanity in our bodies, that people don't believe that this is a threat. Like, and when I say people, I don't mean the people that would be in the circle. I mean like the general population. There's a lot of anger, but there's almost like this constant trust because when you are colonized, you always trust your colonizer. That's what we need to break. But like, how is it when we talk about like cities like Detroit and other fiscal boards to people in Puerto Rico, they're like the immediate response is, well, that's what happened in Detroit. That's not what's going to happen in Puerto Rico. You need to let it happen so that we see how it goes, and then we see if it works, and then we see. And there's always this wanting to see, like as if morals are at the end of that pathway, right? So when is it in Detroit that people understood the fiscal board was not good for them? When did that happen before it even started? Like, were they that colonized they couldn't see it as well? And how do people wake up? Like, how do you wake up people? Like, it's like, I struggle with this because we're always waiting to see, and I'm tired of waiting to see, right?
That's beautiful, sad and beautiful. I don't want to speak on the activists in Detroit. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer the question in terms of when, but I can tell you that they never wanted the emergency management. None of the local people was supported it. The state came in and did that. So they resisted from day one. So I don't think they really had sold it. Now, I think the bigger question is when did the state realize, or when did feds realize? But I would submit that they knew the entire time that what the results were going to be. It's kind of like the saying that the frog in the boiling water, it doesn't jump out because you do it slowly, and that's what happens. And waking people up, that's a $64,000 question. Anybody knows the story behind that number? Everybody says it's a $64,000 question. What is $64,000? Why it ain't 65 or whatever? Anybody know?
Quiz show back in the day.
So quiz show? Okay. I see. That's what I'm saying. Question everything. Why am I saying that? But that is the question. What it would take to wake each other up? I can tell you this. If we can find a reason to stay in touch so that as a media outlet here in DC, I have a direct line to what's going on in Puerto Rico. Not because of what I read or about someone I know in Puerto Rico is telling me what the living conditions are here. Someone's in Oakland is telling me what the living conditions are. Because I'm telling you, we have 6 corporations that control most of what we see here and read. 6! So if you change your channel 5 times, you are right back to where you started in terms of who is telling the story, who's presenting the point of view, okay? We have to discredit the media. We have to discredit the governments, unless, of course, you have a personal relationship with that individual in government. And even then, you got to watch it, okay? Because we're talking about changing or challenging our capitalist system that is out of control. Capitalism, in its essence, is the maximizing of profit at all costs. At all costs. And I want you to understand what that means. That means if I got to make some genetically modified food to cut my costs, to sell more and make more, that's what I'm going to do. If I got to deny you the health service that you need, that's what I got to do. You know, we're dealing with this. We're seeing the last stages of a balloon that's about to burst. It really is. This country is in trillions of dollars of debt. Only reason nobody's calling them out on that debt is because they got the biggest guns. It's like the bully on the playground that borrowed everybody's lunch money, but no one's going to ask him, yo, when are you going to give me my money back, Craig? No one's, until everyone comes together and jumps on Craig, or until everyone comes together and says, we're not giving you anymore. We have to do that. And we have to have a consumer rebellion. We have to start educating ourselves on where our money is going, who's benefiting from it. If you watch 13, that's a great place to start. There's an organization called ALEC that basically shows you how the government and corporations are working together to create fascist agendas, and how our money is actually funding our own oppression. Okay, we can start realizing that. So a consumer rebellion needs to happen, because we need to identify. That's why I said you need to take your money out of multinational banks. That's the first thing you need to do. And put it into credit unions or small local banks. Because guess what? If you walk into a local bank and say, hey, I'm part of a group, we're moving our money, I'm going to have some of my friends come here, and they notice that the next 2 weeks, 50 new accounts is open. The next time you coming in, they're going to be like, hi. And then when you say, well, you ever thought about working with community land trusts? That I guarantee you'll get a little farther than meeting with them, because they see that there is something going on with this. And everyone's looking for an idea, the next big idea. And we all know the problem. And I didn't want to spend too much time on the problem, and I apologize for the time I did spend on the problem, but I felt it was necessary for us to get closer to the solution. Any more questions? I know we're about out of time. I'm here for the next session, so if anyone else wants to talk, I can have my cards to share with you guys. Again, I run an independent radio station here in DC. We are celebrating our 5th anniversary, November the 11th. It took 5 years for people in the city to take us serious, because apparently a business, first 5 years they ignore you, and then for 5 years they take you serious. You must be doing something right, because you've been paying this highest rent for 5 years. So we must pay attention to you. Is there any more questions? Because I feel like there's a gorilla in the room that hasn't been addressed, or elephant in the room that hasn't been addressed. No? Okay. Well, I'm glad it didn't scare anybody. I hope everyone will check We Act Radio out. I do not get paid for you to check us out. Okay? If you want to know how I get paid, everybody comes to DC to march, protest, and rally. We operate as a media production company, so we provide live streaming services for people who do that to amplify their voices, provided their content is progressive, of course. The old days, you would do a press release, hope somebody show up and cover you, but you know that you don't know what point of view they're going to take on your story, and it might just be a quick 30 seconds on TV, or it might just be a short mention in an article. But when you have a live stream, you tell your whole story from the first person, and we take that content and distribute across our platform, and we got 67,000 people that's checking for us. Of course, 67,000 people is a drop in the bucket in terms of media, but as folks who may have a home and had a leak will tell you, a drop in the bucket will fill up and overflow your bathtub, your basement, your house if it continues to drop. And what I want everybody to do is realize there's a value in your drop in the bucket. Okay? We at Radio do something. If anyone needs a card from me, I can give it to you here. Oh, you were bad. I would have been so ashamed of myself if I had forgot to do that. So thank you. Thank you. Here we go. 10-point platform. And it's also very timely that in terms of being okay, come on, computer. There we go.
What's it?
Oh, I got it on this one too.
I know one thing from another.
That's James Bond, by the way. Okay, here we go. We want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our black community. And all you gotta do is take out black and you'll get black right? We want full employment for our people. We want an end to the robbery by the capitalists of our black community. We want decent housing. Now that's the killer right there. Number 4, we want decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings. We want education for our people that exposes the true nature of the decadent American society. We want education that teaches us our true history and our role in the present day society. We want all black men to be exempt from military service. I'm rocking my captain now. Starting today. We want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people. We want freedom for all black people, held in federal, state, county, and city prisons and jails. 13th, y'all, on Netflix, 13th. We want all black people, when brought to trial, to be tried in a court by a jury of their peer group or people from their community, as defined by the Constitution of the United States. We want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace. Now, does that sound like terrorists? That is the 10-point platform the Black Panther Party started. They launched breakfast programs before the government had any breakfast programs. They launched a sickle cell program before the government acknowledged that sickle cell existed. A lot of them were killed. A lot of them are still in prison. There was an FBI program called COINTELPRO that violated every right in the book. People was murdered, assassinated. This was done in the vein of law and order. All right, so be mindful of coded language. People are up in arms over Trump because he's off script, because he's not speaking in code. But he ain't saying nothing new. He's not saying anything new. So thank you for your time. Follow us on We Act Radio. I would love to support you in your efforts. I would love to support you in your efforts. Please reach out to us. All right. Thank you, brother. Send me your information. I don't trust me without facing you. You don't trust me.